Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Spiritist Talk series promoted by the U.S. Spiritist Federation on Saturdays at 11 a.m. East Coast time. The U.S. Spiritist Federation is committed to presenting Spiritism to everyone. So please, if you are able to, please send a donation to www.spiritist.us or by clicking the QR code on the screen to your right. The U.S. Spiritist Federation is committed to spreading Spiritism to everyone, which includes the publication of new titles in English, as well as being a resource of comprehensive information about Spiritism. So your support is greatly appreciated. Also, the U.S. Spiritist Federation is involved in Initiation into Spiritism, which is a 30-course series that happens every Sunday at 10 a.m. East Coast time. And I encourage you, if you haven't seen these episodes already, these courses, to please do so. All right, so today we have our special guest, Beatriz Lopes, whose topic is togetherness. 3 years ago, we might have taken for granted the fact that we live in a society in which we are constantly in contact and dependent on one another. However, a year later, our lives were changed in the blink of an eye. It didn't take long into the pandemic for us to realize that we missed that constant interaction with one another. And quickly, we saw so many new creative ways of togetherness form. Throughout this talk, we will discuss various lessons that Spiritism brings us, which highlight the importance of togetherness. Hi, Bea. How are you doing?
Hello. Thank you for that introduction. How are you?
Good. I'm doing well. Thank you. All right. So before Beatriz does her presentation, let me read you her bio. Beatriz Lopes is a recent Stony Brook University graduate with a Bachelor of Science in Applied Mathematics and Statistics, as well as a minor in Italian language. Bea has started her career as a qualitative consultant at MassMutual. Bea has grown up in Spiritism, attending the Allan Kardec Spiritist Society of Danbury, Connecticut, since the age of 3. And during college, she attended the Long Island Spiritist Center. She has been involved in Spiritism by participating in study groups, giving lectures, delivering a speech at the United Nations, and most recently helping to coordinate a Youth Spiritist Retreat. Thank you for being here, Bea. Remember, everyone, please send in your questions because we will have a Q&A after her talk. Okay, Bea, it's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you again so much for that introduction. And hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me here today and for this lesson. So today we're going to be talking about the importance of togetherness. And as that synopsis said, 3 years ago, we might have taken for granted our connection to one another. We might have taken for granted that we can just go to the supermarket and bump into people, or that we just go to school and see one another, go to work, and we were always connected. So we might have taken that for granted. And then all of a sudden COVID hit, and that completely changed for us, right? We realized, wow, now we have to quarantine. Now we can't physically be with one another. And that was a big shock for us, right? That was something we had never imagined, we had never experienced before. And that moment of getting that togetherness taken away from us, I think was a moment where we realized how important it was that we had those connections with one another. So quickly into quarantine, right? People realize this. Okay, even though we have to quarantine, we still want to be connected. We still want to be together in some sort of way. So we quickly saw people coming up with so many new ways of being together without physically being together, right? So we saw drive-by birthday parties. We saw people that started creating walls that they could hug through, right? Like a plastic barrier. We saw so many creative ways. And even, right, the use of more online platforms, such as this one that we're here today, which has been a great advancement for us to spread Spiritism even further outside of just the center walls. So although, right, COVID has been such an unexpected experience in our lives, it did really show to us how important it is to have this unity, to have this togetherness. So today, right, of course, we all have had this experience in our own lives, but today we're going to be diving into this topic from a lens of Spiritism. So a story that I brought here, which is a book called The Seeds of Good, and it is in Portuguese, but I have translated a story for us to get into this topic of togetherness. So there was this small village that was known for its production of wine. And once a year, they would gather together and have a big party to celebrate the harvest of the grapes, right, that goes towards producing their wine. So in this big celebration in the middle of the town, everyone would bring a bottle of their finest wine. And they would bring a bottle of their finest wine, and they would add it into this huge barrel in the middle of the town. So everyone would combine their finest wine into this barrel. This one man, right, the celebration was coming up, and this one man, he said, well, what does it really matter? Why am I going to bring my finest wine to put into this barrel, right? No one's going to notice if my piece is missing. I'm just going to bring water instead. I'm going to bring water, and no one's going to notice. With all the other wine, no one's going to notice that that my contribution isn't there. So, right, we fast forward to the celebration, and everyone is there physically together, and they gather around the town square, around this barrel that contains all of their finest wine. And when they go to open, right, the faucet to get the wine, to share it, distribute it amongst everyone, what came out was water. So everyone had that same thought. Everyone thought, oh, why does my piece matter? Right? My little piece, my little contribution doesn't matter. I'm just going to bring water. With everyone having that mentality, there was no wine, right? If even one person had brought a bottle of wine, the water would have been a little pink, right? A little bit of a different color. But no one had that thought. Everyone thought, my piece doesn't matter. But what we see in this story, right, is that our piece does matter. Everyone's contribution does matter. It comes together as a whole, right? Even though this one man's bottle of wine might have been a small piece to the bigger picture, we need every single piece to come together to have that whole. We need everyone to have this true sense of connection and unity. And so if we go to the definition of togetherness, so from the Cambridge Dictionary, the definition of togetherness is a pleasant feeling of being united with other people in friendship and understanding. So togetherness is not just us being physically together. It's more than that. It's a deeper connection. It's this pleasant feeling that we're united, we're having friendship, we're understanding one another. So it's more than just being physically together. So if we go back to that example of the story of the village, it wasn't enough for them to all be there just in the town square physically together, right? Because at that moment they realized, oh, we're really not connected because everyone thought that our contribution doesn't matter. So it's not just about physically being together, but about having that deeper connection. So if we think about that story, and if they did all continue their tradition, they did bring a bottle of their finest wine, they did pour it and share it with everyone, what they would have had there is that sense of unity and friendship, right? Something that's connecting all of them on that deeper level, rather than them just physically being there together or physically living in the same town. So what about togetherness in Spiritism? And so in this passage here from the Gospel according to Spiritism, it says, the law of the Old Testament was personified in Moses. So when we think of the Old Testament, when we think of the Ten Commandments, right, we think of Moses. And Moses came to bring us simple but very effective rules for us to start following and start learning. Then, right, that of the New Testament in Christ. So when we think of the New Testament, we think of Jesus, right? Again, we think of this one person. We think of the New Testament being personified by Jesus. And Jesus did not come to contradict, but to build on top of those teachings, to give us more teachings, simpler, a little bit more complex teachings. And then Spiritism is then the third revelation of God's law. But it is personified by no one, because it represents teachings given not by man, but by the spirits who are the voices of heaven, to all parts of the world through the cooperation of innumerable intermediaries. So then we have Spiritism, right? Again, Spiritism comes not to go against what Jesus said, but to build off of that, to give some more complex teachings and understandings. And when Spiritism came, though, it is not personified by one person. There's not one person that is behind Spiritism. It is the collection of these teachings represented by the spirits, right, that are the voice of heaven, these good spirits that are coming to guide us and give us these messages. It is not just one person. In a manner of speaking, it is the collective work formed by all the spirits who bring enlightenment to all humankind by offering the means of understanding their world and the destiny that awaits each individual on their return to the spiritual world. So, right, again, it's the collective work formed by all the spirits. It's not one spirit saying their own experience. It's all these spirits giving us this understanding of the spirit world and what is in store for us. So here, right, in the basis of Spiritism, we see this concept of togetherness, of unity. It is not just one person's voice, right, but the spirits coming together to make this possible. And it's important to point out, right, that we do have some important figures in Spiritism that some people might confuse, and they might personify Spiritism as one specific person, such as, let's say, Allan Kardec. And while Allan Kardec did do so much for Spiritism, he collected and gathered this information into books for us, but the teachings themselves are this collective work from the spirit. So there is that concept of togetherness, rather than some people might get confused and personify it with one person. But of course, it's important to remember, right, as we mentioned Jesus briefly there, that although Jesus, right, we think of it as Jesus' teachings, Jesus didn't work alone. And this quote here from Luke in the Bible says, "One of those days, Jesus went out to a mountainside to pray and spent the night praying to God. When morning came, he called his disciples to him and chose 12 of them, whom he designated apostles." So although Jesus, right, at that time was already a perfect spirit and continues to be a perfect spirit, although, right, he had all the teachings, he had all the messages within him, he knew that he needed other people to work alongside of him. And we see that, so Jesus, he called his disciples and chose 12 of them. So disciples are the people who were following Jesus, who were believing Jesus, believing in his teachings, and following those teachings. So those were his disciples, and he chose 12 of them. And he designated those 12 disciples into apostles. So apostles are not only those who are believing in Jesus and the teachings, but they also go out and spread those teachings. So Jesus knew that while he was giving these messages and spreading these lessons, there needed to be others to continue this work once he had gone. So again, this concept we see all over, that it's so important to be together, to have other people to work together. Even if Jesus, right, could have done it all alone, he chose to have other people to help him to spread these messages. So it's very important to remember that not only, right, is it nice to be together, but it's necessary. It's important to be together and have that sense of togetherness, not just the physical together. So today I brought here a message from the Spirit Emmanuel from the book. It's called The Book of Hope. This book is only in Portuguese right now, so I have translated this message for us today. So we'll be looking at it throughout the course of this talk today, and breaking it up and giving some examples along the way. So the Spirit Emmanuel, he starts to set a tone for his message. He brings one message from the Bible and one message from the Gospel according to Spiritism. And I think this is a really this has a really powerful impact because it shows the aligning, right, of Jesus's teachings to Spiritism, again with that concept of building off of the teachings, not, right, going against. So here, similar to the previous quote, this one says, "Father, I desire that they also, whom you have given me, may be with me where I am." So, right, this message, this quote here showing that Jesus wanted those people that are with him to really be with him, to be united, to be together with him. Jesus didn't want to come and just be alone, right? Who would he be teaching these messages to? So it was important. Jesus was asking, right, that these people who are around, let them be with me, let them be united with me. And in the Gospel according to Spiritism, the quote that Emmanuel brought is, "March forward, magnificent phalanx of faith. Before you, the great battalion of unbelievers will dissipate, as does the morning dew at the first rays of the sun." So I think this one we need a little bit of context. So the phalanx is a group of people that are together. But in the military sense, in a military tactic, it was having these soldiers get really close together and really tight. So a group of people that were really united, really tight together. So as they're moving through, they can't get broken apart, right? No one can separate those people. So it's this tactic of being in a really tight group and working together and moving forward as one. So, but right, that's in a military tactic. But when we're thinking about it here, it's saying of faith. So this group of faith. So unite these people who have the same faith, who have this this drive, this understanding. If we are all united and we're, really tight united, have this togetherness, and we're moving as one, then even with these big fields of unbelievers, right, we'll be able to get through those. We will be able to overcome those if we are united and tightly together. And it's saying, right, these unbelievers, they're going to dissipate the same way the morning dew dissipates when the first rays of the sun. So we know that in the morning we wake up and we go outside and the grass is all dewy. It has water droplets. But as soon as the sun starts coming out, as soon as the sun shines on it, that dew goes away. So it's saying the same. When we are together and we're in this unity and we're going towards, right, maybe some of those unbelievers, we will be stronger together and we will be able to spread that light that will dissipate those unbelievers. And again, right, while this is in a military tactic word and phrase here, it is not about physically overpowering people, right? It's about being together emotionally, in unity, being stronger together, but not in the physical sense. So I think these two quotes that Emmanuel brings here really sets the tone for the rest of the message. So the message starts as this. In a Spiritist Christian temple, it is reasonable to note that all work is the action of a group. So in what it's saying here, right, the Spiritist Christian temple, it's in the Spirit Center, right? The Spiritist Center that we know, all of it is the work of a group. So there's not one person that can run a Spiritist Center by themselves, right? We need a group. We need a bunch of people working together to make this possible. Each person is assigned to a precise task. Each takes the role of a particular piece in the gear of service, without whose cooperation the mechanisms of the good do not work in harmony. So each person has that precise task, right? Everyone plays an important role. And each role, right, works in the gear of service. So if we look at this little picture here of the gears, we need all of those gears, because if one person stops, then that whole mechanism is going to stop. So we work together. We each have our own precise task, yet we're working together, and we need all of those pieces. We need the harmony of those pieces, right? If we're not in harmony, then those gears are not going to work. Indispensable to be erased by the brilliance of the work. So yes, we need to work as a group in the Spiritist centers, and each person has their task, and each task is working with one another and making it possible. And each task, each role is indispensable to be erased. If we look at this little picture here, if we take out the gear, one of the gears, it's not going to work. The whole operation is going to stop. So we need each role, we need each task to all come together to really successfully and effectively produce the good and complete and achieve our goals. We need that togetherness. We can't just be one person doing all of these gears. So Emmanuel is reminding us here, right, how important it is in the Spiritist Center, and also applying to all groups that we're in, that we need to be in harmony with the group. We all need to be working together as a group in all of our pieces and functions. And so to support this idea of working as a group, I brought here a quote from the Bible, from Mark. And it says, "If a kingdom is divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. If a house is divided against itself, that house cannot stand." So again, this is not talking about on a physical level, but that emotional level. On that emotional level, we need to be connected. We need to be united, right? We learned it during COVID that sometimes we are physically divided, but we can still be united emotionally. So we see this concept, right, going way back in time, and still today, it's very important that if we are standing divided, we won't be able to stand, right? We won't have a successful outcome. But if we are united, that's when we'll be able to achieve our goals. And Abraham Lincoln actually used a variation of this quote during the Civil War, when our nation was divided into two, fighting against one another. And Abraham Lincoln said, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." So again, right, a variation of this quote that is so known for Abraham Lincoln to say during the Civil War, saying, right, our country, this house being divided, we cannot stand, right? We're much weaker if we're fighting against one another than if we are united and together. So this has come up in all areas of life, right? Not just in Spiritism, not just in one area, but all over. It's so important that we have this sense of unity. And along with that, another variation of this that has come up in history so much is the phrase, "United we stand, divided we fall." And again, this same concept, right? If we're united, if we have this sense of togetherness, not just physically together, right? Because we can be physically together, but be very emotionally disconnected, and that's not going to work. But if we are emotionally together and we're supportive and we have this togetherness, then we will stand strong. But once we're divided, right, that is going to fall apart. So again, just reinforcing this idea of how important it is to be in a group and working in a group. So then Emmanuel's message continues here And he gives us a little example. In the case of electricity, various functions are gathered, but above all, the production of force is concerned. And in the use of force, the power plant is a spectacle of grandeur. So let's think about, right, Emmanuel's bringing us an example to put in perspective. So electricity, there's so many things that go into electricity, but when we think about electricity, they say we need these big power plants, we need these big buildings, these big structures to produce the power for us. However, it does not complete the entire process without the simple outlet. So if we had, right, millions of power plants producing all this energy, but we don't have the outlets to get that final product, to get that into our homes, that simple little outlet that we have in so many places, in our homes, in our buildings, everywhere we have these outlets. If we didn't have these simple outlets, then that process would not have worked. The process would not have been completed and gotten us to our end result. So it's important, right, to see here that every piece is important. No piece, while some may seem much bigger and better than another, every piece is important to complete the process. Every step of the way. We need every step. If we take out one step, it's not going to work. It's not going to get to the final end result. So every piece that someone plays, and if we think about in a Spiritist center, every role that someone plays is important to come together to achieve the final goal or to produce the good. If we take out one of those pieces, it's not going, right? The connection is going to be lost. So we need all of those pieces. And here I brought another little story about this concept. So there was a father that was in the hospital, and he knew he was approaching his final days in this incarnation. And he knew before he left, he wanted to leave his children with a message, with an important lesson. And so he called his seven children and said, "Come to me and bring a stick. Each one of you bring a stick." And so they were a little confused about why their dad was asking to bring sticks, but they said, okay, right, we'll do as we're told and we'll bring the sticks. So soon they were all gathered. They were all gathered together around the father in the hospital, each one with their stick. The father then turns to the youngest son and says, "Break your stick in half." And he said, okay. And he was able to easily break it in half with no problem. Then he turned to another child and said, "Break your stick in half." The child once again was able to go ahead, break that stick in half very easily. Then the father said, okay, everyone give me the rest of the sticks. So then they got the rest of all the sticks, and the father bundled them together and tied them up with a little rope. As like we can imagine in this picture here as an example. Bundled the sticks together. He then gave it to the oldest daughter and said, "Break this in half." As much as she tried and tried and tried, she could not break it in half. And all of the children attempted as well, and no one could break that in half. So the father said, right, to remember this lesson, that while we are united, and saying this to the children, right, while these children are united, no one can break you. No one can break that. But if they are all separate, then it's so easy to break. They will easily be defeated. So the father was leaving this message specifically for the family, right? But how it applies, right? This simple example applies so well to each and one of our lives and each and one of the organizations that we are a part of. So it's so important to remember that if we are by ourselves, if we are just one person, that's easy to break. But united in this bundle, united together, we cannot break, right? We cannot break that bond. So it's so important that we have each piece there, because if someone, right, going back to the story of the wine, if someone's like, "Oh, you don't need my stick though," and everyone takes out their stick, we're going to be back to maybe 2 sticks, and you can break those, right? So the more we have the tighter we are united and in this connection together, will create kind of this unbreakable bond. And so Emmanuel continues here on the message, and he says, "It is therefore necessary that we know how to recognize for ourselves what is essential to do for the decent outcome of an activity." So if we know that, yes, every role plays a part, we need all these pieces coming together to really produce the good, then we need to know, okay, what are the steps that we need? What are the roles that we need? So we need to do that analysis. We need to assess and recognize, okay, we need these roles so that this process works correctly. Because if we're not analyzing, there might be 10 people in the same role, but no one in a different role, right? So we need to assess that and realize, okay, this is what we need to create a decent outcome. And that might just be producing the good, spreading Spiritism. So if we need all of these roles, we need to make sure that they're equally distributed. Everyone's doing a unique function that's contributing to this general good. So we can't all just assume, right, what is needed. We need to assess that a little bit. Guiding or collaborating on certain occasions, the most important thing that is asked of us is clarification tempered with kindness, patient and clear indication of the truth to the mind of the less understanding worker in the spiritual edification. So sometimes, right, in the Spiritist Center, some people may be asked to do some important roles that might seem really important, right? Like clarifying a concept to someone else, but with kindness, right? We don't want to yell at people when we're clarifying Spiritism. Clarifying Spiritism, giving them these realizations, these understandings, while holding that kindness. And another important task that people might be given is to be patient and clear to be able to explain concepts to someone new that's coming in, right? Someone new that enters the Spiritist Center or that enters any platform that we spread Spiritism. Being able to be patient and kind, clarifying with that person, teaching them the basics of the Spiritist doctrine, giving them the resources they need to continue, right? They might not know all this information, so we need to have patience and kindness. So these are roles that seem very, right, and they are very important roles to the Spiritist Center and to our work in Spiritism, is clarifying and spreading the messages of the Spiritist teachings. But at other times, the obligation more valuable than those circumstances asked for is working with a child, conversation with someone who is sick, cleaning furniture, carrying a small load. So what Emmanuel is pointing out here is that, yes, there are some people who need to spread the Spiritism, right? Who need to spread the Spiritism teachings and lessons and need to teach that to others, help clarify that to people, help receive new people that are coming in. But it's also just as important and valuable, that's saying here, to have the people that are working with the children, helping someone who is sick, cleaning the center, that the environment that we're in, moving things around as needed. So while some, right, we often do this, we often compare the roles that people have. We compare, it's right, we're not perfect, so we are always comparing ourselves to someone else or comparing different roles. But each role is important. Again, if we don't have each of these roles, then our overall outcome is not going to be as effective. So it's important to remember that, yes, we need every single piece. While some role may seem very big and very important, the little roles that are behind the scene are just as equally important. And I think, right, a great example of that is right here, right now, right? I'm here as the person in the role of presenting, right? Presenting this lecture, presenting this information to you all. However, there's so many people behind the scenes here today that are helping to make the slides come in and out, to gather the questions, to introduce me. Thank you, Peter. And there's also, besides today, there's people who work with the marketing, the advertising, the scheduling, the coordination. There is so much that goes into this lecture. This one, this 1 hour that we're here right now, there's so much that goes into it that it's not just one person giving a lecture, one person presenting, right? Without any of those other pieces, this would not be possible. So it's important to remember that no matter how little the role might seem, it is very important to the overall outcome. And here is a quote that kind of encompasses everything that we've talked about so far. And this quote is from Bezerra de Menezes. And he said, I'm going to have a sip of water. He said, in solidarity, we will be united. Separate from one another, we will be points of view. Together, we will achieve the realization of our purposes. So in solidarity, so in agreement, when we're in agreement, we will be united with each other. When we're separate from one another, we're different points of views. We're seeing things from our own perspectives, from different angles. And when we're together, we will achieve the realization of our purpose. So we will realize our purpose, realize that we need one another. We need different roles and different backgrounds and different perspectives to come together to produce this good, to achieve our purpose, right? To realize our purposes. So imagine, right, in a world where we only had doctors, right? Who would be the teachers? Who would be the accountants? Who would be the mechanics? We need all of these roles to come together. And each of us has a unique role, has a unique experience to contribute to the greater good, whether in the Spiritist Center or in our communities outside of that. We each have a unique role and experience that we can bring to the table. And again, no matter how little that role might seem, it is important to the overall outcome. And so continuing on with Emmanuel's message, he says, it is essential, however, to carry out similar tasks without pouring the acid of complaint and without souring the feeling of the systemic aversion. So it's important that no matter what task, big or small, right? Again, all equally important. No matter what task we have, it's important that we carry it out without bitterness, without complaining, without having aversion, which is a strong dislike. So we can't have this bitterness within us. If someone is irritated in the exercise of good work, it is the same as filling bread with ashes. So if we're trying to do good work, but we're irritated and bitter and we're having all these negative emotions within us, then we're not really going to produce that great of work, right? It's important that we have that peace and harmony within us. If we look at this apple here, right, we might be trying to do the good work. We might be very shiny and golden on the outside, and not just us, right? Maybe our group, our center, we might be trying to do the good. But if some of us are feeling very bitter or complaining, or they're feeling these this negative emotions, then the inside is going to be rotten, right? How can we produce the good when we're having all of this negativity? So it's really important that we make sure that no matter what task it is that we are, what role we are in right now, what task it is we were assigned to do that we're helping with, we need to do the best we can with the best intentions as possible, because our intentions will go towards this overall good. And so to support this idea, I brought a message here from the Medium's book that says, reunion is a collective being whose qualities and properties are the result of those of its members, and form, as it were, a bundle. And this bundle will have as much force as it may be homogeneous. So talking about a reunion, again, right? Talking about a group of people coming together. The qualities of that group are equal to the qualities of the members. So if we decide to form a group and everyone comes in and they're all very upset and complaining, then what's going to be produced from that group, right? The quality of the bigger group is the same as the members. So if we come in and we try to, right, take a moment to get that inner peace, to be in harmony with the group, how much more good are we going to produce, right? And it's important that we look out for other people as well, because if one person in the group is feeling that negativity, we're not going to produce as good of a work as we might have been if we were all in harmony. So take the time not only to try and, right, bring ourselves back, calm ourselves down from those negative emotions we might be feeling, but if we see someone else that's going through that, try and help them and talk to them as well, right? Because we want the group as a whole to succeed in producing the good. And, right, we will have as much force as we may be homogeneous, as we may be united and in harmony. So again, if we think about the bundle of sticks, if all the children had brought kind of dead, rotten sticks, then even as the bundle, we'd probably be able to break it. If, right, only 2 or 3 children had brought rotten sticks and they put it within, maybe it might not have broken, but it is a little flexible. You can bend that bundle. But if we all bring our best selves, if we all bring our strongest stick to the table, then that bundle is not going to break. So that's the same way, right? If we bring our best selves to our projects, to our groups, if everyone is bringing their best selves, then we are going to produce the highest quality of work. And of course, right, we're humans, we are still imperfect, and we still have a lot to learn. So we have those times, but it's important to just catch ourselves and try and bring us back down and right, calm ourselves down, bring ourselves back in that harmony so that, again, we can bring our best selves and bring that strong stick to the table. So then Emmanuel says, manage tasks by supporting and obeying, doing the best. In everything, understand that the most efficient way to ask is to work, and the most just process to recommend is doing. But working and doing without sadness or anger, understanding that the benefits and providence are precious resources for ourselves. In all work of the good, we are natural complements to each other. So let's talk about this piece a little bit, right? So the best way for us to practice this as we're going on this journey of trying to figure out how to work together as a group most effectively, right? We can work in groups, but we need to be trying to get the most effective production. The best way is to work and to do, right? The best way to learn, the best way to get things going is by going hands-on, right? We can study and we can learn, which is important, but we also need that hands-on experience. We need to work, we need to do. And once we're working and doing, we'll get better and better, right? Like practice makes perfect. So if we keep working, we keep doing, that's the best thing. That's the best way we can manage these concepts. If we think about these birds, right? Birds don't learn to fly by reading a book. And maybe if birds could read and they could read a book, that would be helpful for them. But they learn by just doing, by trying. And they might fail a few times, but that's how they learn. They eventually get it and they're able to fly. So we need to, right, think a little bit like that. While we can oversee things, while we can see things on paper, it's important that we get to action, right? Take action on those steps, practice it, learn by doing, and we will see the outcome is much greater. And this last sentence here I find really important is that in all work of the good, we are natural complements to each other. So when we're really working towards the production of the good, right, we're going to complement each other naturally. Again, every one person is unique. We all have unique attributes that we bring to the table. But as we're going through this journey, realize that, okay, where I might be lacking, someone else has, or where someone else is lacking, I might have, or, and so on with the group. So we will naturally complement each other because all work for the good, right? We want the good to happen. So the resources are there. We just need to use them effectively. Again, right, going back to making sure that, one, we are in a group, two, that our group is in harmony, that every role in the group is important and it's needed for the final process. And no role is bigger than another, right? All of them are equally important. And as we go through these things and as we're following this, we'll find that this naturally fits together. This puzzle naturally comes together. In question 768 of the Spirits book, and this is in the Law of Destruction, there's a question that says, in seeking out society, do human beings only yield to a personal motivation, or is there a greater providential purpose? So when we're looking for society, right, is it just because we want to be with other people, it's a personal motive, or is there a greater purpose? And the spirits answered, humans must progress. They cannot do it alone because they do not possess all faculties and need contact with other humans. They become animal-like and stunted when isolated. So we need one another. It's not just, oh, it's nice to be together. It's nice to be in a group, or I want to be a group. We need to be together. We need to work together. We don't possess all the faculties, as we were saying, right? We're not perfect yet. We don't possess all the faculties. And even if we did, like Jesus, we still need other people supporting us and helping us in different ways. So we don't possess all the faculties. So we need others that do possess those faculties to all come together, right? Again, like a society with all doctors, right? We can't just have all doctors. We need a doctor, we need a teacher, we need a mechanic, and we need everyone, right, to come together. And everyone brings their unique piece to the table. And together, right, we learn from one another. We progress with each other. Because if we were by ourselves, we wouldn't be able to make that same progress because we wouldn't have the resources to learn those new things or to have other people to help us. So, right, we need this togetherness. It's so, so important for us to be united so that we can keep progressing. And now, just to leave us off with the last piece of this message, and it says that the universe is sustained on the basis of the team. A constellation is a family of suns. One atom is an aggregate of particles. None of us seek unjustifiable prominence. In the direction or in the subordination, we have the privilege of fulfilling the duty that life assigns us, discerning and elucidating, but helping and loving always. The heart, engine of organic life, works hidden, and God, who is for us the divine anonymous, throbs in each being, without ever individualizing itself in the light of good. So once again, thank you all for being here with me today, united in this togetherness that we're having, even virtually, right? We are united and together. So thank you all for being a part of this lesson today. And I think we will open it up for questions.
Okay. Thank you, Bea, for a wonderful presentation. I really liked how you stressed the importance that we work together as a group and that human beings need interaction in order to thrive, really. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So let's see if we have any questions. Okay, from the U.S. Spiritist Federation, Bea, Do you think most people these days are increasingly selfish or less selfish?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, as we know, when we get more complex societies, when we have more material things, it gets a little easier for us to be more selfish, right? Those material things are temptations. So the more things we have, the more temptations we have to be selfish. But I think what's important, right, is that even when we find ourselves, again, we're imperfect. We all have those selfish moments. When we find ourselves having those selfish moments, to say, oh, wait, hold up, let me try and, right, get back to my inner peace, get back in harmony. And I think that will help us move on with that, with what we're working on.
Okay, great. All right, let's see what we have here. From Kirsten Santos. Hello, Kirsten. I'm curious to know how, as a young person, you incorporate your beliefs into your life and how you deal with others who don't agree with your ideals, spiritist or not. How can we be together if we are all so unique and different at times?
Yeah, that's a great question, and there's a couple questions in there that we can answer, but those are great thoughts. Yeah, I think for me, that's a great question. In my life, I don't know many other spiritist teens or young adults, and I know them from my center, but in my day-to-day life, when I went to school and now in the workplace, I didn't have those spiritist peers around me. So I have always been around people who have different beliefs. But I think what's important is, of course, we can't force spiritism onto anyone, and we don't want to do that. But what we can do is spread those good messages. I think for me, how spiritism has changed my life is those subtle, important messages that help us realize the bigger picture, realize why things are happening, see a better analytical view, and help us confront situations. And right, we can help, and I have helped friends, and friends have helped me in ways that are spiritists that they haven't realized, right? Just spreading good messages. Again, this topic of togetherness, right? We can spread that with others without having directly to talk about it in a spiritual sense, or vice versa, right? So there's so many ways that we can talk and find common ground without, even though we have some differences. And the second part of that question, could we pull that question up? Thank you. How can we be together if we're all so unique and different? And I think it comes to an important thought that sometimes it's hard to be together, right? Sometimes we love being together, but sometimes it's difficult to work as a group or to work with some people because we're imperfect and we all have our flaws and our mistakes that we make. So it's hard to work together sometimes. But I think as we go understanding one another more and more, it'll get easier to not try to make everyone the same, but to accept everyone's unique and different perspectives and how that can contribute to the group.
Absolutely. Good answer. Okay. This is from Paula Craig. I studied with Sylvia Brown in Gnostic Knowledge years ago. Sylvia told us, quote, going to church, being together with other people charged our batteries, end quote, for another week of kindness and love.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. I've never heard that. But yeah, when we are together, right, there's a powerful feeling, right? Again, going back to the definition of togetherness is that pleasant feeling that we have when we're united. We're in a group that we're feeling friendliness and understanding and we're really contributing. And again, that doesn't mean we're all the same, but that means that we're just connecting and in harmony with one another. And yeah, it is great, right? It charges our batteries. It makes us leave happier than we came in.
Well, we influence one another a great deal, right? Which is another reason why not being the same is beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, let's see what we have next. This is from Selma Laporte. Sorry if I mispronounced the name. Do you believe that people will understand the true need of togetherness only when and if the world goes through hardship Thanks for the great talk, Bea.
Thank you. That's a great question. And I think one part that the Spirit book points out in the law of destruction is that oftentimes, right, we have these big catastrophes, or like you're saying, these big hardships that we go through because it helps us progress more quickly. Because when it's shown to us on this big scale, it really is like a wake-up call to us, right? It kind of like COVID, right? In a way, COVID, so many tragedies and sad things happened during COVID, but so much good came out of it as well, because it pushed us to progress. It pushed us to move forward. So while we can learn about this topic in our day-to-day lives, I think a lot of us, sometimes we need that push. We need that wake-up call. And that's where even those hardships, they do play a positive role in us having those, that wake-up call to act and learn. But we certainly can learn at other times.
If I may quickly elaborate on Selma's or a question that came to mind is, do you think we should go out of our way to seek difficult situations because it's good for us, or
yeah, that's a great, I think, with our divine plan for our lives, those situations are planned out, right? They will, as much as we might not want it, those situations will come up in our lives. So I think it's important that we do work to do the best and to do good, but know that along the way, those challenges are going to come. So we don't need to seek out those challenges maybe, but those challenges will come, so we can reinforce so we're better prepared when it does happen.
Right. So we have enough to contend with in our daily lives.
Yeah, I'm sure we do. Yeah, all of us.
Yes. Okay. This is from the U.S. Spiritist Federation. Can you elaborate on the benefits of having information from Spiritism coming through a collective source instead of a single enlightened individual?
Yeah. So I think what's so important when we have things coming from multiple sources is the credibility, right? And while we know that, while we all might here be, yes, we believe in Spiritism, but think about to someone coming in. If it's just one person, it's hard to believe, oh, there's just one person that's saying this, right? Where is it coming from? So having that, having it coming from all these spirits all over the world, right? These same thoughts and practices, we have that credibility that, okay, yeah, this is real, right? There is science behind this. So I think that's one of the main benefits of having it, right, come from a collective source. And also we get multiple perspectives and points of views because, right, it's good to see things from all angles and then see, oh, wow, it aligns on all these angles. And again, we can have that reassurance in the teachings.
Yeah, those are good points. Okay, let's see what's next. This is from the International Spiritist Council. With the pandemic and more Spiritist centers going online and many using the hybrid approach, has this helped people in Spiritism to be more together, or has it encouraged division?
I think it's definitely helped Spiritism be more together. I know that currently I coordinate a study group that's in English. And in my center, we don't really have many English speakers. So there's not that many people that were attending the study. During COVID, being able to put that online, we were able to reach people that were all over the US and even in Brazil that wanted to study in English. And we were able to reach so many more people and get those people involved when they didn't have a center. So I think in a lot of ways, it made it a lot easier to bring people together. But I do still think when possible, it's still really important to have that in-person connection. Again, when we can, when it's safe to, and when it's possible, it's important to have those in-person connections. But the virtual connections are great as well, like here today.
So finding that balance is really important, however that's done.
Absolutely.
Okay. This is from Mafsa, I guess it is. Bea, I am moved by your talk. Could you share your email so I could correspond with you? This is from Bob Auberg, I guess it is, in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yeah, of course. If we could pull up the slides, I had it on the first slide, so I can pull it up for you.
Ah.
Let me I think the question is blocking it a little. Yep, yeah, there it is. So thank you. Yeah, thank you for that comment, and I would love to correspond with you. Any questions or comments you have?
Okay, next question from the U.S. Spiritist Federation. How can we encourage togetherness and unity during moments when people disagree with one another?
Absolutely. I think this is a really important topic with everything that's been going on in our society and even in Spiritism, outside of Spiritism. I think this has been a really big topic lately. And I think it's important to see everyone from their different perspectives, right? Again, we're not trying to change people's minds. We can't change people's minds, but coming together on where we are united, right? We are all human beings. We're all have our own mistakes, have our own faults, right? There are points that we can connect with one another and better understand them. So trying to find those points that we have in common rather than those points that are tearing us apart. And then that can open up, right? Once we have that connection, we can have some more of those difficult conversations where we might be disagreeing, but we'll be more productive in that conversation if we find that common ground first.
Right. It's really important for people to listen to each other, right? And it's not easy. When people disagree. Okay. Well, thank you, Bea. That's it for the questions. And thank you, everyone who watched this live. And we thank all of you who've been following this weekly talk. And once again, we'd like to thank you for supporting our efforts at the U.S. Spiritist Federation, if you can, with a donation at our website, or if the QR code shows up, we have the QR code on screen. Thank you. Once again, the U.S. Spiritist Federation is committed to increasing publications of Spiritist titles in English, as well as being a resource of information on Spiritism. Okay, our talk next week will be Saturday, August 5th, and we will have Jana Mercado, and the theme will be Charity Towards Criminals. That should be an excellent subject. And now, before we end our live, Beatriz, can you please say a final prayer for us?
Yes, of course. Thank you. Taking a moment to thank God, Jesus, our mentor spirits, for this opportunity of togetherness that we have right now. Being united, not physically, but emotionally in this moment with one another. Thank you for all of the teachings that Spiritism has brought to us, that the spirits have brought to us to learn and improve our lives and help us so that we can continue to learn and grow and spread this information to others. Today and always. And so be it.
So be it. Have a great week, everyone.